Most of us live in a state of perpetual exhaustion. The daily routine is often a continuous reaction to incoming tasks, emails, and obligations, leaving very little room to actually design a trajectory. The standard education model is highly specialized. It trains us to manage external systems, like code, spreadsheets, or logistics, but it rarely provides an instruction manual for the human hardware running those programs. Usually, the response to this exhaustion is simply to work harder, but if the system itself is inefficient, pressing the accelerator only burns through fuel faster without changing the destination. To understand why progress stalls, we have to look at the 5 specific resources that dictate our capacity: energy, time, mental bandwidth, social capital, and money. When we view life through this lens, stagnation looks less like a personal failure and more like a distribution problem. If a system isn't scaling, it typically means one of these pools is draining faster than it can be replenished. Energy and time act as the absolute baseline resources. It is impossible to invest financial capital or build a social network if you are too depleted to think past the next hour. Identity-based habits create the automated engine needed to capture that energy. By building routines around your identity rather than relying on willpower, you generate consistent output without draining your mental reserves. Look at this temporal matrix. Instead of letting the day fracture into minutes of distraction, time blocking and deep work consolidate your attention into solid, unbroken pillars. These serve as the steering mechanisms to focus your captured energy. Consistency acts as the sealant for these structures. Maintaining strict boundaries prevents outside demands from eroding the time blocks you've secured for high-value work. Mastering this daily allocation creates a reliable energy surplus. This surplus provides the fuel required to engage in more complex social and financial investments. Once you step outside your controlled routine, you interface with a chaotic environment. In this space, your most fragile resource is mental bandwidth. This visualization demonstrates how emotional intelligence operates as a defense. Self-awareness and empathy form a shield that stops erratic external friction from hijacking your emotional state and draining your focus. With your bandwidth protected, communication, speaking clearly and listening actively, serves as your offensive mechanism to trade value with others. Navigating disagreements cleanly and deploying active listening turns isolated daily interactions into a measurable, compounding reserve of social capital. Defending mental bandwidth while maximizing social capital determines your leverage and ability to move upward within any social or professional structure. That leverage eventually manifests in the most tangible resource of all, material capital. Budgeting and systematic investment plans are the financial equivalents of the time-blocking habits we established earlier. They are simply the mechanics of discipline applied to money. This chart shows the logic of compound interest. It plots an exponential growth curve over time, demonstrating how reinvested returns multiply your base assets at clearly marked intervals. The energy and social capital you captured in the previous stages act as the initial principle here, allowing you to begin this financial curve much earlier in life. Financial literacy is the measurable outcome of a functional internal operating system. It proves that wealth is often the result of internal mastery first. These 5 resource frameworks are not isolated. They operate as a single, unified machine. When a breakdown occurs, whether it's burnout or a financial setback, it can almost always be traced back to a specific leak in one of these 5 interconnected pools. Looking at the network again, we see the compounding effect. Discipline captures time, fueling deep work, which builds social capital, ultimately accelerating financial wealth. This synchronized compounding leads to genuine personal freedom, owning your time rather than being owned by obligations. Your challenge is to run an immediate audit on your own life. Identify which of these 5 fundamental resources is currently leaking the most. Moving beyond the plateau doesn't come from grinding harder on a broken treadmill, but from systematically plugging those resource leaks and letting the mechanics of compounding do the heavy lifting.